It's like look at the black belts, look at what how they think, how they feel, how they act, but do not compete with the black belts. You're gonna get your ass kicked, right? Your only job is to compete with the person in front of you, right? The person who is a belt above you.
Welcome everyone to another episode of Yollab Central. Today I'm joined with Bogdan. Bogdan, would you like to tell our audience why they should be excited about our conversation today?
Absolutely. Well, we're going to talk about the martial arts plus leadership principles
Mhm.
that you can use, your audience can use to become, to join actually the top 0.01%, which is actually the topic of my upcoming book. So I'm excited to talk about that.
That would
Yeah.
be great. So, where should we get started? Martial arts plus leadership, there is a lot of things that go together, right?
Mhm.
Leading with principle and things like that. So, where do you want to start?
Um, I'd like to start with why, the reason why I decided to write the book, and also the reason why I'm doing this type of work. Um, I'm just a kid in a grown-up body who, grew up in a small town in Romania. But because because of the fact that these tools were not available, I mean, Romania was communist up until 1989, so discussing this stuff would be unheard of. But because of our teachers, our parents, even my martial arts senseis, they weren't equipped with number one, the leadership tools that we have access to right now. So basically, all of us, okay, speaking of myself, I grew up feeling like I wasn't good enough. Maybe you can relate to this. I heard that Indian parents are very similar to Romanian parents. If you come back home with anything less than an A, it's like, oh, what the hell is wrong with you? Like,
Yeah.
right? And then you come back home with an A, it's just another day, right? Like
Yeah.
nobody cares. So that feeling of not being enough, it really affected me in all aspects of my life, relationships, career, just the way that I saw myself. And I still deal with it to this day. But I've become really, really good at sparking confidence in people so that they really understand self-leadership first, and then they can grow into leaders. Because, like it or not, you are a leader, right? Even let's say just because you're a parent, or maybe you have nieces and nephews, right? You're an aunt, an uncle. You're still a leader. You're still a role model.
So,
Yeah. So yeah, please.
no, I actually relate to that because when I was quite young, I did one belt of karate, and then martial arts do instill a lot of discipline. And then when you do those routines, then there's a lot of perseverance and then repetition that's involved, right? But then also when you rise up the ranks, there's a sense of leadership that gets instilled in students. Uh,
Hmm.
and when you talk about self leadership, obviously the first person that you have to lead is yourself, right? I mean, that's
Right.
my one way to put it, my understanding of self leadership. But then, how are you saying that? When there's one thing when one person practices martial arts, but then how do you instill this confidence in a person without actually having them practice martial arts?
Great question. Great question. And before I answer that, let me touch upon something you mentioned, because these two fields apparently have nothing to do with each other, or they intersect, but they are actually very, very closely related when you look at it. Because I was teaching martial arts. I created the first personal development through martial arts program in the world, and I taught it for 6 years in Bucharest, right? But despite the fact that I was teaching martial arts, I wasn't very disciplined.
Mhm. Okay.
Right? So everybody associates discipline to martial arts, but I was thinking about it before our interview. The great grandmaster for the style I was teaching, Wing Chun, he actually died of cirrhosis. He loved drinking and having fun and partying. So he didn't have discipline across the board, but he was also an exquisite calligrapher,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So this is something that is worth addressing because from my experience, discipline is a result of vision
Yep.
plus passion,
Mhm.
right? Because if you're really passionate about something, you don't need discipline. Like nobody, let's say, you have a hobby of, you mentioned painting bottles, right? Nobody needs to drag you out of bed to say, hey, here's a new bottle, go ahead and paint it,
That's right.
right? You just love doing it. Now, what is required for that, to kind of circle back, for that level of confidence, is having a vision, or actually they're kind of tied together because everybody has a big vision. Everybody wants something big, right? Oh, I want my life to be this, this, and that, right? But the problem is, without the level of confidence, you need some degree of confidence that you can create that vision because without it, it cannot pull you. What you want is a vision that is so fun, so exciting that it actually acts as this planet. It has a gravitational pull. So when you have that, it doesn't matter what you do and which direction you go, it's always going to pull you towards it. You cannot escape its gravitational pull. Now, without the confidence that you can move towards that vision, the vision cannot pull you towards it because you're literally not in the same universe.
Right.
Now, how do you develop that level of confidence without necessarily practicing martial arts? You use the principles from martial arts that make you great. Mm. So, for example, a huge principle of martial art is what I talk about in the book. It's like look at the black belts, look at how they think, how they feel, how they act, but do not compete with the black belts. You're gonna get your ass kicked, right? Your only job is to compete with the person in front of you, right? The person who's a belt above you.
Mhm.
So, can you do five more push-ups compared to that person?
Mhm.
Can you over deliver? Can you take note and be aware of the 1% improvement you made today and feel proud about it?
Yeah.
Can you look at all of the difficult situations you've dealt with in your life, and there have been many, and say, hey, I've done a lot of difficult stuff in my life. It's okay
Right.
for me to feel good about myself and feel confident.
Now that's one way to put it because I mean, taking small steps is what I've heard from a lot of people, and then it's what that's adding up, right, towards the greater goal that you have in life.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
you know, now one thing I want to say was, I mean, vision and passion, right? You might have a vision in life, but currently your passion is something. Okay. Now,
Mhm.
how do you go about telling your students that to align this vision and passion, which might be divergent right now? Okay, I mean, we talk about this. Sometimes I've talked about it, but then how do you align these two things? Because passion might not always be long term. Okay, a
Mhm.
vision is surely long term, but a passion is something that you're just following. It's just in your heart right now.
It really depends. Because the question is, do you want to turn that passion into a career?
Mhm.
If it does, then it's going to be a very different conversation versus bringing in more passion to your work, like bringing in the same
Yeah.
passion you have for your hobbies into your work, right? So, which one do you want us to tackle or discuss?
Okay. Now let's jump to your book directly. I mean,
Okay.
what's the first thing that people would come across when they start reading it?
Mm, great question. So, my approach to coaching is slightly different, right? Because like most mindset coaches, they give you like some affirmations, right? They boost your confidence, and you're like, okay, great. But then you're left wondering, okay, how do I actually create more clients? How do I create bigger clients? How do I attract and hire amazing people, right?
Right.
And vice versa is also true, right? You hire a consultant
Mhm.
or a business coach, you get the strategies, but then the 95% that matters, the mindset is not there, and you're still stuck. What I've learned from martial arts is that everything is yin and yang, right?
Yeah.
So you need to understand the soft and the hard, the strategies and the mindset. So that's why the book is also in two sections. So the yin has to do with the inner shifts that are required for you to create and to then fully use the strategies. So the yin is talks about the mind, the body,
Mhm.
and then the soul.
Okay.
And the yang section of the book addresses the most common leadership questions around self-leadership, around leading a high-performing team, attracting and hiring exceptional team members, even if they're Gen Z. I know that's a huge issue these days, but
Yes.
yes, like I've had two Gen Z interns
Uh-huh.
that they were commission based and they were amazing
Mhm.
simply because they loved the vision of the business, right? They love what the business stands for. Um, so yeah, that's how the book is structured because you need both.
Now,
And
I see
then,
that you love talking about your book. I know, I mean,
yeah,
did I interject? Were you going to say something else as well?
yeah. Sorry, I get so excited. Sometimes I need to remind myself to shut up. So please go ahead.
No, it's just that, yeah, this yin and yang concept, the polarities that are there in life, but then you've divided itself into two parts, like the inner shift and the outward leadership that we have to do. Now, this book itself, how have you taken it? How are you planning to take it out to the world, right? Uh, what strategies are
Mhm.
you adopting to take it out to the audience?
Excellent questions. So the book will be absolutely free.
Okay.
Um, and once it's done, I have so far I've got around 80 pages done, refined, right? I'm gonna be putting it on Amazon, but if you want like a physical copy of the book, you're probably just gonna have to pay for shipping, but you can also just download the PDF and read it as an ebook as well. The strategy of putting it out there is twofold. I'm now interviewing top leaders, 10 specifically top leaders in the world. 10, there we go. Um, Including people like Jasmine Alich, who is the king of LinkedIn, right? He's the number one creator on the platform. He's going to be featured in the book and sharing his top leadership insights, and a few more that I'll keep as a surprise, and a few martial artists as well. So that would be one way of promoting the book. Hopefully, they enjoy the experience and the book, and they're like, "Hey, I need to share this with my audience. They're gonna absolutely love it." But of course, they're under no obligation to do so. And secondly, just I'm having a lot of fun doing podcasts, so probably just doing more and more podcasts to
Okay.
talk about this concept.
So these are two things. But have you tried something on social media, trying to create buzz around the whole topic? I mean,
Yeah.
and so how's it like? How are people receiving it? What are the triggers
Mm.
you're using for them?
Here's something that I think you would really, really like. So before even putting the first sentence of the book in,
Hmm.
I went on Fiverr. I asked somebody to make a book cover for me and give me the Photoshop designs, right? And I created 20 different versions of the
Coverage.
copy of
Yeah.
the cover. Exactly. And it took me about 2 days to finalize this, but it was worth it. I then created 20 different ads on Facebook
Mhm.
with a Facebook form with 3 questions around, hey, are actually 2 questions. Are you in a leadership position? Yes or no? And then what are your top questions around becoming a top leader? I let the 20 ads run for 24 hours.
Mhm.
And then I looked at the click-through rate. I looked at the cost per lead in that sense. But more importantly, I looked at the quality of the answers for that question, right?
Mhm.
In the form. And out of the 20, I chose one,
Yeah.
right? So that was something I've never tried before. It was just an insight that I found, funny enough, in another podcast. I was like, oh, this is a really, really good idea. So I should really do this first. So that was kind of the validation, the process of validating the idea. Secondly, I have an app on my phone called Minect by, the guys from Valuetainment. So what I also did was to kind of further validate the concept of the book was I messaged top leaders there and I asked them, hey, I'm thinking of doing this thing. Can I get your feedback? And I took note and then I started writing the book.
All right. Now, this is a very, I mean, it's not unheard of and doing A/B testing, and but you've taken it to a different level altogether. But it really validates the whole idea that you're trying to put out, and you're getting returns, not just from prospective audience, but there's a lot of people that you're getting returns from, and you're getting genuine feedback, and that too just on the idea itself, right? And that's pretty useful per se. Now, coming back to the book itself, uh, you say the mind, body, and soul. Is it like you put it in three different segments itself, or you're trying to create a amalgamation of these three, and then it goes together, mind, body, and
What do
soul?
you mean?
I mean, there are strategies that people take to take care of their mind in one go. Then there's one way to look at the body, and then there's one way to look at the soul. But then there's sometimes you have to look at all three of them together, right? So that was what
Well,
I was thinking. So is there something specific like that, or what is your method of solving problem?
well, actually, I said it's 10 martial arts plus leadership principles, but it's actually more like 80 because in the book, because like for the mind, there's 10 different martial arts sub chapters basically with 9 or 10, I don't remember exactly, more martial arts principles, right? Like, for example, the the soul section is
Mhm.
all about being the observer, kind of like stepping out of yourself, right? The body, the chapter about the body starts exploring the theme of death,
Okay.
right? Because Bruce Lee said, like everyone else, you want to learn the art of winning, but you're afraid to die, right? Whereas to learn to die is to be liberated from fear.
Yeah.
So it is a gradual process, let's say, because first, to touch the heart, you have to go through the huge filter of the mind,
Yeah.
right? So that's why we start with the mind. We start addressing the objections of the mind to then go into the body and then to the soul, aka the heart, right?
Now, when it comes to your clients, okay, they are leaders and all. Now, what's the first issue that you've tackled with most of them? Okay, let's say on 80/20
Hmm.
principle, what's the most common issue that you see with them?
Blind spots,
Sorry?
blind spots,
Okay.
blind spots. They're all dealing with blind spots, and everybody feels like they have a marketing, sales, or team problem.
Mhm.
They don't. They It's almost always a problem of the business owner holding the business back, right? So in a sense, they're the bottleneck of the business,
Mhm.
but they cannot see why and how, right?
Mhm.
So having somebody from the outside to call them out, and especially when they're successful, they have a lot of people who are easily impressed with their minimum effort, right? And that means that they never really perform at their highest potential, right? To get a better idea of how I work with them, I actually have a podcast called Stories from Your Future Self, where I actually coach leaders live in each episode, and I create a breakthrough for them in minutes. But to give an example of one of my biggest clients, he was running a $120 million a year import-export business, and yet
Mhm.
he was scared to grow the business because deep down he believed he's going to make a mistake,
Okay.
and that mistake would cost him millions,
Mhm.
and he just wasn't going to put his family through something like that, right? So in one conversation, I actually had to remind him of who he was.
Mhm.
He took over his father's company in his 20s because his father had passed away.
Okay.
So you can imagine that back then he wasn't really being taken seriously by, collaborators, suppliers, because he was so young.
Yeah.
But he didn't just learn to deal with that. He learned to grow the business. And I said, this is who you are, but you just forgot.
Right. But I think there also lies the problem of people getting in the groove, getting into the comfort zone. Right. I mean, if a person has grown that business and that business is now running constantly at a constant pace,
Yes.
there's nothing to worry about, and the person is making good money, then why
Mhm.
trouble and why change what's working perfectly? So is that also something that people do a lot? Because I mean, there's scope for the business to grow, but then they're just afraid to take things and set things in motion because they feel that it might break. I think that was one of the things that you must have observed.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. The biggest enemy to great is good,
Mhm.
right? So if it ain't broken, don't fix it. That doesn't really exist. Nothing really stays unbroken, right? Because we have entropy in this world, right? Things do break. So you're either improving it or it's breaking by itself, but you're just not noticing it, right? Because it's breaking in the background. I talk about it in the second chapter of the book, like the body, the definition of balance. Because I used to believe that balance was okay, like these monks, that they're meditating, they're still, right? But that's not what balance is. I was sitting with the my martial arts grandmaster back then, and I said, I'm really looking forward to the balance the martial arts gives you. And he said something I'll never forget. He said it's not easy because you need to know when to sit and when to move.
Okay.
It's the same with this idea of things are running well.
Yeah.
Yes, you are in a season where you can sit,
Mhm.
but the season to move is coming soon.
Okay. I mean, there's the age-old adage where they say change is the only constant, right? Things
Yes.
will change today or tomorrow, doesn't matter. And it won't matter if you're trying to sit still or you're moving, but things will have to, and you'll have to be prepared for it. And you better be prepared, that
Yeah.
kind of thing. Now, this change and balance, I know where to go from here. So, when you're with your clients, okay, let's just talk about your clients again. When
Mhm.
you're working with leadership people, do you have any lessons for them when they say trying to get into, say, digital platforms? Or, because you mentioned that you bring them onto your broadcast and you solve problems for them on the fly, right?
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah.
now, how does that come about? I mean, do they say that, yeah, we want to get onto this conversation, or is it a part of your process that you take them through?
Uh, what do you mean?
I mean, even I'm not sure. But then let's just say that you have a client and then you are solving some problems for them. You have them going through a process, right?
Yep.
Does everybody come onto your podcast and then for the greater good, you're saying that let's tackle this specific problem that you have today? Or is it that you just
It's
specific
it's
people?
always different. It's
Yeah.
always different. Well, everybody wants frameworks, sure.
Hmm.
Step one, two, three. ChatGPT can give you a framework to
Yeah.
to transform. Doesn't mean you're going to do it, right?
Yeah.
So what I've learned from martial arts is like, let's say you're sparring, right? Let's say you're doing karate and you're doing a bit of sparring. If you're like, oh, I know how I'm gonna win.
Mhm.
Step one, I'm gonna punch here. Step two, I'm gonna do this. And step three, I'm gonna kick like that.
Not working.
You're gonna get your ass beat
Yeah.
like never before, right?
Yeah.
What is required is listening with your whole body
Mhm.
and being in the now. Most people don't even listen with the ears, let alone the whole body. Here's what I mean, right? I'm not just listening with for what you're saying. I'm
Yeah.
listening for what is not being said.
Okay.
And that is comes from listening with your eyes, right? You
Mhm.
see the micro gestures in people. So let's say I'm talking with a client and I say something, hey, what do you think you would need to 10x your revenue, right? And they're like, well, this, and we're like, there's something there. He's not really there with what he's saying, or this is not really it. It's not going to make a big difference, right?
Mhm.
And then when you sit back and you're more like an observer rather than being over here, right? I never coach from here, right? Like, here's what you need to do. Um, you tap into intuition, and your intuition will guide you towards, hey, let's explore this avenue. Let's see what this, if we push this button, what happens? So, in a sense, like in sparring, where your partner or your opponent shows you how to hit them, my clients show me how to coach them.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yep. I mean, it has to be intuitive and you have to be feeling the person sitting in front of you. For
Yes.
other coaches per se, do you have any specific tips that you want to give? Because I mean, you have a very different perspective because not a lot of people bring martial arts and
Hmm.
lessons from martial arts into the whole picture of leadership. And now,
Yeah.
I was just going through your, I mean, the whole introduction and general brief that was there. You mentioned there was this thing about lead like a general, and I just forgot what the next one was. But then uh, there's this about Sun Tzu from China, right? He wrote a whole book about army
Hmm.
warfare and strategy. Now, is there something that you bring from there as well? Because there's a lot of strategy in that, but then that's not exactly martial arts, I'd say.
A lot of it is from my own experience. And, speaking of other coaches, I've had a lot of coaches myself.
Okay.
You'd be surprised how very few coaches actually listen,
Okay. Right.
actually want to understand you deeply and see you at a soul level, right? And this might sound a bit metaphysical, but here's the opposite of that, right? You're not even done describing the problem, and the coach is already like, here's what you need to do. Do this, do that, do this, do. Like, most of my coaches were that. And I was completely surprised. I thought everybody like, hey, this is your job to listen, to ask deep questions, to challenge your clients, right? So if I had one insight to share is really master slowing down to speed up. It's like you either have like one extreme or the other. Either you have coaches who are stuck in the, so what do you think you should do?
Okay.
And then you get frustrated, like, what the hell? Like, if I knew what I should do,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be
Got
here
it.
with you,
Yeah.
right? Um, there is an element of, hey, let me pull out the solution from inside of you. But then again, kind of coming back to the martial arts principle of knowing when to sit and when to run. Like, when do you pull out the answer from your client, and when is the time to actually give direction and lead and say, okay, I got it. I understand what you're going through. I understand the block. Let's do this for 2 weeks. Trust me with it.
Mhm.
If it doesn't fit you, I'll give you something else. But for 2 weeks,
Let's
We
just
just stick to this. Yeah.
trusting the process is well.
Yeah.
Does trust come easy for clients? I mean, skepticism is not very unusual. What do you say to that? I mean, because when you go to a coach, you have to have some trust that, yeah, this is the person I'm going to be listening to. But then, does every client come with that trust, or do you see a lot of skepticism?
Trust is built from first impressions, from the first time you meet someone, that's when you start building trust. What I found with my clients is um I've never I've never had a client who didn't have results as long as, and this I tell to every single one of my clients can attest to me saying this before they pay to work with me, right? And I said, look, two rules. Follow the two rules, you're going to get amazing results. Break the rules, you're going to get no results. There's no in between, right? You're either 0 to 100. Rule number one, do your best to do what you say you will do.
Okay.
That's it, right? Not perfectly. I don't need it to be perfect. Just do your best. Rule number two, when you notice yourself not being able to do what you said you were going to do, reach out and ask for help. That's what you paid me for. That's why I'm here, right? You'll be surprised how many people get stuck on number two, right? And it comes back to the same idea of what we were talking about initially, right?
Mhm.
What I see is clients feeling a bit reluctant, maybe a bit ashamed. They kind of shell up and they're like, a week later, like, hey, what's going on? Like, well, I wanted to do this, but I couldn't, but right? So it's never a trust in the coach, right? Because if you've decided to work with someone, there is a high level of trust there. Where the majority of my work happens is allowing clients or, giving clients the resources to trust themselves, to not be hard on themselves when they couldn't do something, they couldn't complete something, to not be ashamed, guilty for not doing it, and just elevate their confidence. Simple example, I was talking with one of my clients yesterday, and she knew exactly what she needed to do to grow her. She's a fractional chief financial officer, right? She knew exactly what she needed to do to create uh, two, two more clients, right, for her service. But she wasn't doing it because she didn't feel good enough. It's like, what if they say no? What if they reject me? What if, I like, but then we pulled out her confidence, like, oh, I'm excited to talk to people now.
Right.
That's really the journey.
Thank you so much. I mean, that surely is enlightening for me and obviously, surely for the audience as well. Thank you for joining in. Before we close, do you want to share where your book will be available and any other resource that you would like to share and how people
Yes,
get in contact with you?
absolutely. Easiest place to get in touch with me will be LinkedIn.
Mhm.
If you'd like to check out my podcast, Stories from Your Future Self, to see how I work with leaders live and basically create a breakthrough for yourself by watching people go through their own breakthroughs. You can search for that on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And the book, maybe there's going to be a link in the description. You can reserve your free copy of the book once it's done, and I'll let you know, hey, the book is ready. Take it. Oh, and when you go through the link, you can already read the first two chapters of the book, the mind and the body, so you can already start making progress towards being a top level leader.
Thank you so much, Bogdan. Thank you for joining me in on this conversation. I'm sure there will be a lot of things that people can pick up and they'll have their own breakthroughs through this conversation. To the listeners and viewers, if you like the conversation, do hit a like. If you have something you relate to, do give a comment and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you for joining in today to Yollab Central.